What is up, everybody? Chris here from Esports News, back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys a quick recap as to what happened during Sunday's matches, as well as what you can expect going into today's matches, that of course being day one of our last week of Stage 5 of the CDL. So this is our last week of regular matches before we have our final major and then champs. So looking back to Sunday's matches, we had like 3 upsets in terms of my predictions. Literally all of them were wrong. So looking at the graphic, of course, you guys can see I had the LA Thieves walking away with the 3-1 against Paris Legion, and the exact inverse happened. So Paris, of course, won 3-1, and now we'll go over the stats. Of course, looking at map 1, this, of course, being a raid hardpoint, it ended 250 to 230 in favor of the Thieves. So I thought this was going to be a pretty standard 3-1 from the Thieves, considering they usually beat the Legion with 3-1 scoreline. And looking at the stats, of course, everybody on Thieves played pretty well with the exception of Slasher. He had a 0.7 in map 1. Kenny had an even KD. Draws had a 1.53. He was trying. And John had 1.05. He played very well. Scraps was the only player positive, well, super positive on the Legion side. He had a 1.13. Aqua had a 0.96. Temp went even. And of course, Zap had a 0.8. So they lost by 20 points. Very close map 1. Paris played them very tight and they played well. Looking at map 2, of course, this being around 11 S&D on raid. It was raid back to back to back. And both teams are good at raid, right? Like the Legion are definitely pretty solid on raid. They even beat like some of the top tier teams like Optic, FaZe, etc. Or they brought it close in some cases. So looking at the Thieves side, John went crazy. He had an 11 and 8 scoreline, 1.38 KD. Kenny, of course, backed him up with a 1.29. And then Draws had a 0.6, Slasher had a 0.3. So if one of them does better, presumably this game would have ended a little bit earlier and Thieves would have won the map. Then looking at the Legion side, Temp had a 2 KD, Zap had a 1.25, Scraps had a 0.78, and Aqua had a 0.86, but they got the dub, so that's what really matters here. Looking at map 3, that of course being the raid control, this ended in a 3-0 for the Legion side. John had a 0.68, Draws had a 0.88, Ken had a 1.05, and Slasher had a 0.47. Aqua, of course, had a 1.18, Scraps had a 2.09, Temp at a 1.36, and Zap at a 0.76. So they were just frying throughout the entire map, and that's why they won it. And then going to map 4, APOC Hardpoint. Thieves, I mean, they got clapped here, right? It was 250, 178. Looking at the stats, Sean went even, Draws at a 1.16, Ken had a 1.1, Slasher at a 0.64. Bad series from Slasher, just an off day, and it can happen to anybody. Sometimes you just have a tough day at COD, and that's what happened to him. That's why they lost the series. On the Paris side, Aqua at a 0.96, Scraps at a 0.94, Temp at a 0.95, and Zap was KD leader in the entire lobby with 1.26. So looking at the stats overall, obviously Paris dominated this matchup, and the stats reflect that for sure. Of course, Aqua had a 1 even, Scraps had a 1.2, Temp had a 1.15, and Zap had a 0.98. So very, very solid across board for Paris. Nobody was really too far away from a 1 KD, which is really what you want to see on that side. And then on the LA Thieves side, of course, John had a 0.97, Draza had a 1.1, Ken had a 1.07, and Slasher had a 0.58. So this is really an anomaly of a series for Slasher. But honestly, the Legion came out and handled business, and hats off to them. In the case of the Thieves, I think it was just an off day from Slasher. It's not really a match to go back and say, hey, what the heck did we do wrong here? I mean, he just got tucked to bed, and it happens sometimes. So great showing for the Legion. Not really a lot to take away from the Thieves side. They just, obviously, there's some small mistakes they need to go back and fix and things they need to look over VOD to review. But yeah, great series and interesting ending for sure. Okay, now looking at the game 2, of course, that being Optic versus FaZe. You guys know I was obviously backing FaZe, my favorite team in the CDL, my home team, etc. And honestly, the one time I backed FaZe, they lose. So maybe I'm the Chael Sonnen of COD. Who knows? Looking at map 1, it was 250 to 177 in favor of Optic. RC's had a 0.76, Abizi had a 0.65, Cell had 0.58, and Simp was the only player on FaZe positive with a 1.41. Looking at the Optic Shy side, of course, Scump had a 0.62, Formal had a 1.25, Envoy had a 2.07, he was frying, and Dash had a 1.2. So Envoy was frying the entire map long and the entire series long, and Simp was the only player on the Atlanta FaZe side who was really keeping them in it. Everybody else just had a rough go of it, and the Optic boys, with the exception of Scump, all played very, very well. So very typical performance from them, and they won 250 to 177. coming out the gates really hot in the series. Of course, looking at map 2, that being Miami S&D, Optic went up 4-2, and then FaZe ripped off 4 straight to bring it to, of course, a round 10 where they ended up winning. And looking at the stats, RC's had a 0.88, Abizi had a 1.29, Cell had a 0.63, and Simp had a 1.6. So a good turnaround for RCs and Abizi. Of course, their KDs looked a lot better. They contributed a lot more on the map, and they looked more comfortable. But Cell, he just looked to be a little bit off in this map. And you know what happens. Like I said with Slasher, it just happens sometimes. Scump had a 0.75, Formal had a 1.33, Envoy had a 0.71, and Dashi went even. So if the Optic players played a little bit better, presumably they could have won that map, and they probably wouldn't have allowed FaZe to rip off 4 straight to make the comeback. Looking at map 3, of course, that being Raid Control, it was very close. It went to round 5, and Optic walked away with it. They clutched up at the end. They played their lives very well. And that's how they took the B point, stacked it as they should, and they looked great. So looking at the stats, of course, RC's put up a 1.07, Abizi had a 1.1, Cell went even, and Simp had a 0.97. Now on the Optic Chicago side, Scump was the only player positive with a 1.15. Big rebound map for him. He was obviously getting tucked in the first 2, so it was important that he had this regained for his momentum. Formal had a 0.91, Envoy had a 0.97, Dash had a 0.87. So very, 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 very consistent on both sides. Obviously, the Optic Chicago side, the ARs, and of course, Scump's sub duo Envoy were not playing that well, but they were able to squeak out the win regardless, and they just played them very tight the entire time, which is what you want to see for the Optic guys. Looking at the APOC hardpoint, of course, it was 250 to 172 in favor of FaZe. They played very, very well. And looking at the KDs, of course, everybody on FaZe went positive with the exception of Simp. Of course, RC had a 1.07, BZ had a 1.06, Cell had a 1.29. This was his rebound map in the series, and Simp had a 0.88. On the Optic side, of course, Scump had a 0.89, Formal had a 0.7, Envoy went even, and Dashi had a 1.18. So, I mean, APOC is not a good map for Optic. There it is right there. Not really a lot to say there. And then the game 5, of course, this went all the way down to the wire, went to round 11, which is what we all, of course, wanted to see. This is the series that we've all been anticipating all season long, and it was finally as good as we wanted it to be. It went to a game 5, round 11, and it was really, really great to watch. RC's had a 0.75 in this game 5, so did Abizi, and then Simp had a 0.88 and Cell had a 1.17. On the Chicago side, Scump had a 1.2, his sub duo Envoy had a 1.57, Formal had an even KD, and Dash had a 0.86. So great showing from the Optic boys. They showed the ice in the map 5 and closed it out. And it was really the series that we've been waiting for all year long, like I said. So it was great to finally get it and have it not disappoint us. Looking at the series stats, RC's had a 0.94, Abizi had a 0.95, Cell had a 0.94, and Simp was the only player positive on the FaZe side with a 1.08. On the Optic Chicago side, Scump had a 0.91, Formal had a 0.96, Envoy had a 1.21, and Dash had a 1.01. So really even performances on both sides. Most of the FaZe players are pretty close to a 1 KD, and everybody on Optic was relatively close to a 1 KD. So everybody was just playing relatively well. Nobody really played badly. Some players did have some stinker maps here and there, but that's necessarily going to happen in every series. You can't get all the kills or have all the deaths, right? So great series. The two teams looked very evenly matched, and that's what we wanted. They went blow for blow, and it was just an incredible series. Didn't disappoint. Now looking at our next matchup, we had another matchup that definitely did not disappoint. We had the Empire taking on, of course, the Rocker. You guys know I was expecting the Rocker to take it in a close game 5, just given how shaky the Empire's form has been within this stage. But the Empire, they honestly rebounded very well, and they took the win here 3-1. You guys know I said that was a very, very likely possibility if Empire got everything together, and what they showed us in the first few matches was a fluke. Of course, the loss to Florida, that being. Looking at the stats here for map 1, of course, Empire won Gary Hardpoint 250 and 170. Vivid went even. Krim had a 0.9. Illy had a 1.33. He was the KD leader in the lobby, and Shotzi went even. Of course, looking at the Minnesota Rocker side, Sandy had a 0.79. Not a great map for him. Pretty rare performance. Major had even KD. Priesta went positive, with a 1.05, and Attach complimented him with a 1.04. The map 2, Miami S&D, went in favor of the Rocker, as we would expect. They're a pretty strong Miami search team, and honestly, I just like the looks they have on that map. They play it very intelligently, and they play it very well. Looking at the stats, Vivid had a 0.25, very unlikely performance from him. Krim went even. Shotzi went even, and Illy had a 0.86, so just a rough showing for the Empire. And on the Rocker side, Sandy had a 0.75. Major had a 2.75, went crazy that map. Of course, Priest had a 0.38, and Attach had a 3.33. So Major and Priest just got all the kills, essentially, and that's why the map went in their favor. Great showing from them, map 2. And then on map 3, Vivid had a 1.33. Prim had a 0.63, Illy had a 1.36, and Shotzi had a 1.35. So that's why the Dallas Empire got the 3-0 in this control. Sandy had a 0.74, Priest had a 0.79, Attach had a 0.94, Major went even. Not going to show you guys the stats. It was a sweep, and there's no point in that. And then looking at the map 4 to close it out, this was checkmate hardpoint. This one went down to the wire. I believe it went down to the final P2. Dallas closed it out, and they clutched up. Even though Minnesota got spawns, they just couldn't hold them, and Dallas showed the ice. So looking at the map, of course, Vivid had a 0.78. Didn't matter in the end. Krim had a 0.93. And then, of course, Illy had a 1.08, excuse me, and Shotzi had a 1.36 to close it out. And on the Rocker side, Sandy went even. Major had a 0.72. Attach had a 0.96, and Priest was the only player positive in this map with a 1.23 and 6,600 damage. Good God, Priest was frying. If only the players on his team could pick it up, they would have won the series, but great showing for Dallas nonetheless. And looking at the series KDs, Vivid had a 0.9, Krim had a 0.86, Illy had a 1.18, and Shotzi followed him with a 1.2. On the Rocker side, Sandy had a 0.84, Major had a 0.99, Priest also had a 0.99, and Attach had a 1.09, the only player to go positive on the team. So it was a great showing for the Rocker. They played the Empire very, very tight. This is encouraging for them going into the Major. And of course, going into their next matchup against, I believe, the Mutineers. I think they play Mutineers this week. So hopefully they can play them pretty tight, maybe eke out a quick win. That would be really interesting if they could win, because I don't think Dallas beat the Ultra. I think the Ultra are just a better team, and especially after Dallas reverse swept them at the Major, I don't think Ultra are going to allow Empire to have their way this time. Looking at tomorrow's matches, we of course have some very interesting ones. Looking at our first matchup of the day, we have the New York Subliners taking on the Paris Legion, and I'm really not too sure what to think of this series. Of course, I'm pretty sure you guys saw Diamond Khan was announced to be replacing Clayster this week. Clay's taking some time off for his mental health, which I absolutely applaud. I think that's very important, especially having such a stressful job during a pandemic with the pressure of fans and everything else. And just the struggles that NYSL has had this year and the struggles that Clay's had over the last 3 seasons. I think he definitely deserves a time off to focus on himself and just regain. And I hope he comes back better and stronger. Um, of course, on the New York Subliners side, also for Diamond Con, excuse me, this is a chance for him to prove himself. He's been playing exceptionally well in challengers with Team Canada, and this is a chance for him to really show teams what he has to offer going into the end of the season and free agency, of course, after champs. Now, enough about that. Back to the match. Of course, I think that the Subliners with Diamond Con, as odd as it may sound, I think they'll find some footing, and I think this is what they need to re-energize them. This is almost like a mini roster change. I think it'll re-energize them, and the honeymoon phase will allow them to walk away with a win against the Legion tomorrow. I think it's going to be a close game, honestly, but I just don't think that the Legion are going to have a repeat like they did against the Thieves. I don't think there's going to be a player who massively underperforms like Slasher did, where they just have a really bad series. I think these Subliners players are likely going to be looking to rebound somewhat after having an 0-3 start and having some embarrassing losses thrown in there, right? So I think they win tomorrow. I'm not sure what the scoreline will be. I'll say 3-1, but I think Subliners win. And I think Diamond Khan will probably be trying to raise his stock going into free agency, so I think he has a good performance. In our second matchup of the day, we have Optic Chicago taking on the Ravens, and I think this is a 3-0, honestly. I think after beating FaZe in that game 5, Optic has likely ascended into the S tier of COD. Finally, I think they finally broken through. They're fixing the small mistakes. They're playing together intelligently, and they're playing well. So I think with that in mind, I think the Ravens have been playing very, very well. Don't get me wrong. Afro's been playing well. Alex has been playing a lot better consistently. Only problem is Shawnee. He's been holding him back a little bit with his inconsistent performances. But I think that honestly, the Ravens will put up a very valiant effort. But I think that with Optics momentum and them just clicking at the right time in the year, I think they walk away with 3-0 here. So yeah, guys, I'll just about wrap it up for me. I'm sorry this video is so long. I know it's super long. I had to go over those stats for the first 3 matches, of course, from Sunday. They were really interesting, and they had some really crazy maps. So I had to go over that. The upset, obviously, the FaZe versus Optic series. But yeah, had to give you guys stats and give you the real analysis and breakdown. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you enjoyed it, be sure to like and comment. Help us get that engagement up. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And of course, hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night, wherever you may be on this beautiful planet. Be sure to tune into all the COD action today. We have some interesting matches. Paris versus New York is one that I'm definitely very interested in seeing, and Optic versus Ravens as well. This is a good test for, of course, Optic to see if they are really in the upper echelon of teams or if they're kind of flirting with that idea. So yeah, guys, like I said, that'll wrap it up for me. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Hope you have a great morning, noon, or night, like I've already said before. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. Once again, this has been Chris from Fake Sports News, and I'm signing off. Peace out.